Good morning, church.
Good morning.
Today already has been a great day for me. A lot of times I find myself struggling with the words that I'm singing, the words that I'm saying, and how and if it really lines up to what it is that I'm believing or saying that I believe when I'm not here. Now, I'll get back to that in a moment. I'm going to take a little detour, and I promise, if you stick with me, I will bring it back around. It will be relevant. This word on my shirt, how many of you are familiar with it? How many of you use it on a regular basis? How many of you would say that it adequately describes me? Probably by the time that I'm done, most of you will be raising your hands. A little story about this shirt in particular. Jill and I were living in Lubbock, and we hadn't known each other that long, but she had begun to get a feel for me and who I am, and she bought me this shirt. And I, of course, thought it was the coolest thing. I'm not ashamed of it. I don't think of it as a negative thing at all. There are a lot of words that we use that kind of have a connotation depending on the context or the person who says it or any number of things like that. But for me, I was like, yeah, sweet, new t-shirt. You know, that's always got nice. Something clean to wear is good when you're a bachelor living with 3 other guys. It's nice to have clothes. And they wouldn't be as quick to take this one from me, so it kind of had some insurance. But I also thought in the back of my mind when Jill gave me this shirt, I was like, you have no idea. You have no idea. It's going to get so much better. Now, I'm not going to try to convince you, this is not my point, of the fact that this shirt is true or describes me adequately, but the things that I'm going to talk about may do it for me. Let me ask another question. How many of you have ever or are familiar with the acronym RPG? And it's not a rocket propelled grenade, it's a different thing. Okay, so 2, 3, oh, alright, cool. What if I said role-playing game? Any more people heard that? So a few more? Alright. Now, what if I said tabletop role-playing game? Finding my people. Finding my people. Alright, I'm done now. That's all I want. I'm kidding. A tabletop role-playing game. Now, there's a lot of words in that one description. And it means a lot of different things to different people. We have our own little subculture, the RPGers. And it's something that I have really gotten into. I mean, this is since having met Jill. I had played role-playing games before, but they were video games, not actual physical sit down with a group of people and go on a quest in your mind. Hadn't done that before. but I started getting into it. Jill was good enough to come along with me on that. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to shame you. She is wonderfully supportive. I've been a pretty avid tabletop role player for quite a bit over 2 years now. We've been regularly hosting people at our home. They'll come, oftentimes never have experienced what it is that we're going to do, and it's not some, well, some people take it to extremes, don't get me wrong, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it, where you have the live action role play, where you'll go out full suits of armor and you'll act all that out. That is a thing too. Nothing wrong with that. That's not what we do. We sit around a table and we try to collectively tell a story. That's, to me, the essence of it. What it is you're trying to do is kind of irrelevant. It's more about establishing the ground rules, establishing a persona, whether it's your own or one you're going to make up, and introduce that to other people, and then decide collectively, or sometimes you're just told, this is what you're going to do. Now, there is a person who is at the table that is not a player in the same sense that the other people are. They are a role player. They are the one that's kind of running the game, is the verbiage that's used, the game master. And it's up to them to kind of lead the journey of whoever's playing and say, okay, this is your surrounding. This is where you are. This is the timeline. Is it fantasy, or is it based in some kind of reality that we know? And they kind of set the stage. And sometimes they have a specific thing that is that they want the group to experience and to do. Other times they will just kind of leave it open-ended. All right, you're here. What do you want to do? Now that can get really crazy really fast, as you can imagine. It's called going off rails, where it's just a fiesta. It's just chaos, which can be fun. But as the person who's most commonly running the game, I can tell you that it's very difficult to keep people kind of focused on something. Because just like in life, people given the opportunity to do whatever they want, they do whatever they want. And the person running the game has to kind of appreciate that, respect it, say, okay, well, this is what you're trying to do, but we're going to try to steer you over here and try to get you on track, or just some kind of, plausible, mutually agreed upon storyline for the whole group. Now, you can go a bit deeper. You can say, for each of the players, you select a role, hence the role-playing game. And you can decide that you're going to be this, handsome, buff warrior type. And you're going to swing your sword, and you're going to wear heavy armor, and you're going to vanquish all your enemies just by sheer martial prowess. Or you can be the sneaky type, or you can be the smart intellectual, or you can be one who's really in tune with nature, and you basically like a tracker. There's all kinds, and people have had over 50 years to iterate on this idea and come up with all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot out there, and we don't need to get into that, but what's important is whenever you start playing this game, people choose a role. And they say, I'm going to be this, and this is how I'm going to behave. Sometimes players will take upon highly idealized versions of themselves. Whenever you put them in the position to be a hero, they'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to be me because it's natural, and I can do that easily, but I'm going to have there's something special about me all of a sudden, or there's something, I'm a certain way, or I have a certain special skill. And that's going to now define me and how I interact with the world. Or you have other people who take the opportunity to do something entirely different, be totally different than how they normally are. And that's fun too, because you get to kind of see, you get a special insight. And I'll tell you, if you've never done this before, if you really want to get to know people, try this experiment. It doesn't have to be the game. Just establish some rules, set a groundwork, and let people interact with each other as they would choose to. I've had people that, I mean, what typically happens is I'll start a game for a couple friends, and I'll be basically telling a story that it's like a choose your own adventure type thing, where they've chosen their roles, I'm leading them along, they're going with me, and then somebody will mention it to one of their friends, and oh, that sounds really cool. So before I know it, I've got like 8 people at this table, and I'm trying, basically what it turns into, I'm trying to herd cats. I'm trying to get them to all just listen, first of all, is the hardest thing. So you have that many people and different conversations and cell phones and all this stuff. So trying to keep focus is like almost impossible. But like I said, you get a really special insight into those people and who they really are. I feel like you can't, I mean, I should preface that with my personal experience. I haven't participated in something other than this that gave me as much of an insight into people. So for that alone, it's been huge for me. And it's also taught me a lot about myself. Because whenever you're the one that's running the game, you've got to be quick, because you've got 8 people that are throwing ideas at you and saying they want to do stuff, and you've got to have a response. You've got to be like, okay, we can do that. We'll get to that later, just kind of try to figure out in your head, because you have a very clear idea of what it is that you want them to do. And oftentimes, like if you're like me, you'll spend the whole week or 2 leading up to this one session, as we call it, to kind of plan out all these things. You'll have these NPCs, which are non-player characters, which they're basically the backbone of your world. You play these characters and they can interact with them, and that means that I've got to wear a lot of hats, essentially. So I've got to be a lot of different kinds of people. And I've always got to keep in mind what it is that they want to do, what I want to try to lead them towards, and try to make it. Oftentimes, I'm trying to get them to do something without them realizing that that's what I want them to do. So there's definitely like an art to it, as far as convincing someone that they want to do something without them realizing that you're trying to, it can get complicated. But the more I participate in this, the more time I spend with strangers, pretending to be people that we're not, so we don't even know each other to begin with, but we're both pretending to be different people. You see how, a lot of times, how people wish they could be seen in real life. How they, like I said, that's a highly idealized version of themselves. That they a lot of times, I believe, they genuinely want to be seen that way. Because this person that they've created is better than they are, is stronger, is braver, smarter, more insightful, more charismatic. And sometimes that is a hard thing to deal with, because whenever they get put in a situation where they have to act, and you see them like working through it, okay, well, this is what I would do, but my character would do this, so what am I really going to do? Like, what do I want? You can see that kind of internal struggle a lot. And what's so cool about this game is that typically other people sitting at the table can see it too. And they see that person struggling, and they see that person trying to make a decision, and see that person trying to represent themselves well. And they'll jump in, and they'll try to basically facilitate this person's choice. And it's just so cool to see people who are unfamiliar with each other, or even if they are, help each other in that way. To try to figure out, like, and form in their mind, like, their ideal self, their best self. Now, I said I was going to bring this back and hopefully make it relevant. And I think I can do that, and probably a few of you can assume or accurately guess where I'm going with this. So I'm going to try to relate some of the things that we deal with in our day-to-day, in our Christian walk. With what this experience is like, this tabletop role-playing game. Because the more that I do it, the stronger, I don't know, I know that I'm responsible for forming this idea, but stronger the apparent connections become for me. Because every day we wake up and we're typically in our established routine. This is who we are, and oftentimes who we are is defined by our role in society, our job. And then sometimes before that, or secondarily, it's what does your family look like? And then it's, or again, maybe before, it's where were you born? What ethnicity are your parents? And then it's what social status were you, and what social status are you now? So just those things, we've already got a pretty full load. I mean, we've got a lot of things that are kind of setting us or marking us as a certain type of person, a certain way. And if we're not careful, we can let that dictate the kinds of choices that we make, where we go, what our priorities are, what we attempt to do. And as I run this game, one very important aspect my players is their trust in me. Their belief that I have their best in mind. I have only good intentions. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them have fun. I want to see them come back and continue enjoying each other's company. Those are my goals. They have to believe that. Because if they believe that I'm somehow out to get them, or that I'm going to, you know, ruin their fun or waste their time, then very quickly they'll lose interest, or they'll find themselves not enjoying whatever it is we're doing because they feel like I've got an agenda and I'm gonna get them. So I have to be really careful about that. And why I mention that now is because throughout our lives, we're carrying all this stuff, who we are, our role. And it's there, and I mean, we can change it, through the decisions that we make, through the choices in our career, in our family, and hopefully our spiritual walk as well, our life in the church. We can make positive changes, but we can also kind of get lost in what it is that we're supposed to do, or we're supposed to look like, or how people see us, even our friends. And we can sometimes forget that there is a creator, our God, who has made all of this stuff. Everything we can see, everything we can imagine, everything that we can hope to experience. And that He has made us. And that He has our best. Our very best. Sometimes when we don't even understand it, but He wants nothing but good for us. Do we really believe that? Because it sure is easy, and I've seen a lot less than some people. And it sure is easy for me to get distracted. It sure is easy for me to forget who I want to be, really, when I get down to it. Whenever I'm still and quiet and contemplating what God has done for me, whenever I form that in my mind, I don't know why, but it's easy to forget it. I can have this crystal clear image of who I want to be and what I want to be and how I want to be seen by other people and how I want to be known and how I want to be remembered. But that's almost the first thing that goes. Whenever I get stressed out, whenever I get overwhelmed, whenever I become unsure, whenever I kind of lose my role, so to speak, if I get upset or disturbed in any way, I kind of flounder or waffle or whatever you want to call it. I find myself just kind of floating. And it's mornings like this morning when something happens, something I don't expect. I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm trying to, just mentally prepare. And then something simple. Something like just one sentence. You are a good, good father. Like that statement, it really touched me. And it reaffirmed my role, my experience. It reminded me that I have been exceedingly and overwhelmingly blessed in my life. That my role is to be a servant in the kingdom of heaven. Not whatever I'm currently getting distracted by or caught up in. That I have a good, good Father that has the best the very best in store for me. If only I'll believe it, if only I'll trust it, if only if I'll choose, make that decision, whenever I wake up in the morning, think first how blessed I am. And speaking of things we heard this morning, I've got a lot of work to do. I'm boastful. I say things like, well, I'm going to do this, and this is definitely going to happen, talking about the future. And what we should be saying is, Lord willing. How does that tie into our role? Is that a constant, consistent thought whenever we're thinking about these things? And if you could go back and somehow change where you came from, who your parents are, what you look like, what your skills are, what would you change and why? What would you hope to accomplish in that change? Can we believe that all of our experiences are significant? That all of our experiences have meaning and purpose, and all of our experiences lead us to be better servants of the kingdom of heaven? I mean, there are certainly things that I think of that I wish I would have done differently, or wish that I could change, even though I know that I can't. And sometimes I let that kind of build up and I start to resent it. Start to resent my role. Start to resent what I have laid out before me, what I'm supposed to do. And fortunately, I have people around me who can ground me when I get to that point, who can kind of bring me back and turn the ship around, so to speak. And that's what is so great about the church, is we have so many different types of experience. We have so many people with tons of different roles. And it wouldn't work near as well if everybody had the same experience. It might be a little easier to relate, but as I was talking about before, whenever you pick your role, you're trying to build something. You're trying to make something. You're trying to make a cohesive unit, a team that functions well, that kind of plays off each other's strengths and accepts each other's weaknesses. Are we comfortable with that? Are we comfortable existing and being in the role that we've been given? And how can we help each other? I don't think, well, I know, I can only speak for myself. It's easier to see someone and think, well, we don't have a whole lot in common. I can't really relate to that. I can't really help them. Sometimes it's just uncomfortable and awkward. But I know that that's going about the wrong way. And we don't consider what that person is bringing to the church a lot of times. We want to look at what's on the outside, and we want to put them in a box, so to speak. And until they somehow prove otherwise, that's where they'll be. And that's not good. It's not healthy. It's not fair. It's not productive. I don't feel like it's the plan. So how many of you, given what you've just heard, would agree with this shirt? Just a few more. What is your one word? What do you want it to be? It could be anything. This is one that was chosen for me, and I accept it. But if I had to make up my mind, if I had to choose, and that was going to be it forever, until God takes me home, what one word would you choose? I think it's important that we know. I think it's important that we actively decide. It's important that we don't just kind of float along and let things happen. Certainly we can help to define each other's word. That's what we're supposed to do. I feel like that's the ultimate mission of the church, is to find people and help them figure out who they are and why they're here, why they're a part. The kind of genesis of this line of thinking, how I came to this point. I realized that if this hobby of mine is just that, just a hobby, just a game that me and my friends get around a table and play on occasion, it is a big part of who I am, but if I'm not actively pursuing that, not actively using that, not actively trying to reach out to others, then is it worth all of the time that I spend on it? And I spend a lot of time on it. And I still struggle with that, but thinking like, I want to be known as kind. I want to be known as patient. I want to be known as loving. So this experience that I'm having, is it helping me to achieve what God has set out for me? Is it helping me to define myself in His kingdom? Is this hobby beneficial to the people around me? Can they see that it's more than just a game? And like I mentioned before, it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to lose your place. It's easy to lose the definition of your life. But we should strive to bring that out in each other. We should also keep at the very forefront of our minds who God is and how He's made us and what He put us here for. That's something that I struggle with a lot, because I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of skills, if you want to call them that. But I still feel like I don't have my place. And the older I get, the more I realize I think that's kind of that's a me thing. That's not a God thing. That's not, I need to stop waiting on him to basically grab me and say, do this thing. Because fortunately, his good for us, his intent for us, can be what we enjoy doing and what we like and what we want to be. Of course, if we're accepting his guidance, if we're considering him in our decisions, whenever we're keeping him in mind whenever we make our choices. And I've read a lot of scripture and having to deal with that issue, having to deal with who God is in relation to who I am, why he's put me here. And to close, I want to share this one with all of you. And hopefully, if you don't already have that in your mind, it will give you some peace, this idea, this direction that we're supposed to go in. Maybe it will help you to kind of crystallize that and to give you confidence in your role, to give you confidence in who you are, and the peace in knowing that it's ultimately his game. Not to say I'm not making light of this world, but when comparing it to what I've talked about, like this is he's made it all. And he has very specific desires for each of us. So if you would like to read along, it's in the 10th chapter of Jeremiah, verse 11 and following. Tell them this: these gods who did not make the heavens and the earth will perish from it and from underneath the heavens. But God made the earth by his power. He founded the world by his wisdom and stretched out the heavens by his understanding. When he thunders, the waters in the heaven roar. He makes clouds rise from the ends of the earth. He sends lightning with rain and brings out the wind from his storehouses. Everyone is senseless and without knowledge. Every goldsmith is shamed by his idols. The images he makes are a fraud. They have no breath in them. They are worthless, the objects of mockery. When their judgment comes, they will perish. He who is the portion of Jacob is not like these, for he is the maker of all things, including Israel, the people of his inheritance. The Lord Almighty is his name. Gather up your belongings to leave the land, you who live under siege. For this is what the Lord says: at this time I will hurl out those who live in this land. I will bring distress on them, so they may be captured. Woe to me because of my injury. My wound is incurable. Yet I said to myself, this is my sickness, and I must endure it. My tent is destroyed. All its ropes are snapped. My children are gone from me and are no more. No one is left now to pitch my tent or to set up my shelter. The shepherds are senseless and do not inquire of the Lord, so they do not prosper, and all their flock is scattered. Listen, the Lord is coming, a great commotion from the land of the north. It will make the towns of Judah desolate, a haunt of jackals. Lord, I know that people's lives are not their own. It is not for them to direct their steps. Discipline me, Lord, but only in due measure. Not in your anger, or you will reduce me to nothing. Pour out your wrath on the nations that do not acknowledge you, on the peoples who do not call on your name. For they have devoured Jacob. They have devoured him completely and destroyed his homeland. Now, it's from the prophets. It's kind of bleak. But what it tells us, what it communicates to me is that is the result of seeking a role outside of God. And that is what they had done. It's what Israel had willingly done. They forgot their purpose. They forsook their word, which was blessed. And the key part of that for me is that it is not in man to determine his steps. So as you go throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your life, you wake up in the morning and you think of all of these things, who you are, what you have to do, be careful how you define yourself. Make an effort to make sure that you will recognize yourself at the end. That your one word will be one that brings honor and glory to God.